Okay, thank you. Let's get started then. Hi guys, my name is George Kishing. I'm currently working for the OpenBMC, the project here, the community project. I'm from the power system groups and from IBM. So that is me. So let me go to next slide. Okay. So a little about me. So most of my career, I have been doing the software development, and I'm a test engineer now. I've been working with IBM since 2004. Mainly, I work on the hardware service processor, firmware development, networking, and doing firmware test and DevOps. So the OpenBMC, I started around 2016. That's now around almost 4 years. I'm from lives in Bangalore, India, and that's my mail ID and my IRC. If you want to catch me, talk to me on OpenBMC. And currently, I'm the maintainer of the OpenBMC test, and I support the Jenkins hardware CI test. You may have noticed that if some of your commits get if there's fail in the hardware, then I would have triggered it or leave a note on your Git commit or open a bug against you. So those are things that I'm doing in OpenBMC. Moving on, today's agenda, I'm going to talk about briefly how you can get started with OpenBMC tests and what are the test capabilities we have right now and the test activities that we are doing, and plus some of the near future immediate work that we are looking at, and we'll be looking for a suggestion and feedback from you guys. So at the beginning, our main OpenBMC test philosophy has been like we wanted to write something, write very small code and simple test code to understand, so that because it can be debugged, fixed easily and understood easily by the community. We were looking for having a very generic test and a documentation, so that the test itself is a self-explanatory, documented for the community. We support and use of rich functions and scripts and the functions to be used in the automation, and easy to debug, because this is one of the pain points when we're running some tests or when we see something failure, we want to know immediately what has failed, why it has failed. Then the log data collection. This is one of our key important things, because we wanted to know for sure what actually fails. We want to get the data when the test kind of fails, not after when everything is run. So the log data collection is also, this is one of the philosophy we have. We have to collect logs because we need to analyze, we need to debug something, and we need to fix it, or we need to raise a bug, and we want to give a feedback. And another philosophy we have is, since the communities are pushing the code to the test, no matter how much generic we write, since all of us could not run on different systems, right, that is supported there. So we have the capability, or this is that somebody wants to pick and choose a test, so that they don't need to just randomly run any test. So this capability, so this has been the core philosophy of the OpenBMC test. Write small code, generic test, easy to debug, collect logs, pick and choose testing capabilities. So now to get started, so OpenBMC test, we have been using this robot framework. At some point of time, we look around what are the available, stable, and which has a good community support, and looking at the set of the philosophy that we have, which matches our aspiration. So robot framework kind of fit into the scheme of things. So we kind of picked this up for the OpenBMC test. It doesn't mean that down the line it may not change, but at the moment, this is the best thing that we have it at the moment. So it's a CLI base. So you can go and look up the robot framework, the community. It's very well documented. What is a keyword driven, and it gives a CLI command to run your tests, right? So now we are using a Python base mainly in the OpenBMC test. There's a Java base plus there's a .NET version of it, but we are not running any of those. And if anybody are running of those, feedback would be very much welcome. So currently we have run those or tested this robot framework in OpenBMC BMC in the Linux distro and the Windows. So we know for sure that it works on at least those two platforms. And we try to, because since there are many of the versions OpenBMC releases out there, so we want to ensure that people who are still using the older version of these packages plus some code, so we try to maintain it and compatible, but hey, always use the latest and greatest just to get the better support from the OpenBMC test community here. To get started, it's pretty simple. You just go to this git clone this OpenBMC test repository. Currently, we have around 1,200 plus test cases and counting, and this is going to exponentially grow over a period of time. So it become very important that the philosophy that we want to pick and choose whatever we want to run, right? So out of this 1,000 test cases, you can always pick and choose and run any of the test cases. Maybe I'll explain a bit down in further slide. So we have tried our best to leave an instruction and general information in the README. You can go through it. Just to give a snippet of it. So this is, once you do the followed instruction, it's around like 4 or 5 steps only. Then you can just run this CLI robot command and to see template code, even to see, hey, if the setup is ready to actually run on real hardware. So you can see that the template test OpenBMC setup robot, you can see, hey, the IPMI, the SSH, the Redfish REST, they're all working and able to talk to BMC, right? So this is some of the template codes we have. Then there are a couple of examples here that how you can run. So you can run, for example, we are running the test user accounts. And then the next one, you can see that we are able to run a collective set of pick and choose test cases, which is scattered around different kind of modules or function or interfaces, and it can still run it. So this is how our OpenBMC test give the support. And this is the one which is running in the hardware Jenkins CI test environment. So the one which will do the code update, run tests, and give feedback to your Git commit. And the coding guidelines, so our, though it is a robot framework, we have around 30 to 40% Python codes at the backend that we wrote. Plus we have shell, which you can use it. So you can plug in any of the shell, or you can write your own Python custom scripts or the functions that the robot can import it and you can run it. So the coding guidelines are there. So, and it's, if you follow that coding guideline, it's pretty easy to understand why we do certain things. So coming to our the test philosophy. We say we want to keep the test very small and easy to understand, documented. Itself become a documentation, right? So here are the 4 use cases, like test cases that is there in the our GitHub repo right now. You can see on the left-hand corner, you can see the redfish invalid your URL response code. So you can see that this is a test case name. Then they have the documentation, which tells what does it do. And you have a tag. This tag is, the purpose is for doing a pick and choose test when you want to run or you want to skip it. And you can see from the test, you can see it's pretty simple to understand. And we try to make it as much atomic as possible, the test statement. So you want to say, like, for example, you're doing a login, get and log out, right? And you can see at the bottom of the left-hand side, something to do with the GUI that we have been working on for quite some time. You can see it's pretty simple what we do here. You click the element, you go to that using a Selenium robot, and you wait for the page, the element is there. So you can see on the right-hand side of in the top corner, you can see that it provides templatized kind of code flow, meaning you have a set of data-driven use cases or tests that you want to test, right? So it gives you that feature. So you can see that you can have 3 different test cases in one test using a template, right? So this is another cool feature of it. And then you can plug in your own, for example, the IPMI cell here at the bottom. So where you can clear, do a list, and you can check it. So this is how our OpenBMC test robot test will look like. And exactly it will do what it says here. Okay, so that kind of serve our idea that a test itself should be easy to understand. It should be self-documentation, and then it should be easy to follow and say, hey, what does it do, right? Moving on. So another idea behind why we choose certain aspect of this framework or the test design was we want something which is easy to debug. Now, on the left-hand side, that is nothing but a Jenkins plugin. So you can have, robot has a Jenkins plugin which you can use. When you run in Jenkins, you can give a robot test summary like that. So this is a run from the hardware CI test that is running there. And now you can, on the right-hand side, you can see it's pretty, once a robot test is run, it will create a log.html, and you can just point to any browser you have, Chrome or Firefox, any browser, and just load it up, and it will show you with the color coding. Plus, it will tell you how to navigate the code. You get the plus sign there, means you can expand it, what all the steps it does. So it kind of captures every test code that you capture. So the logging mechanism is already given behind the scenes, and you can see that it's pretty easy for anybody who has even a less coding experience or understanding can figure out, okay, what actually must be happening with this test and why it failed. And you can see the timestamp when it is run, and at the end you can see there's an FFDC that I will talk in the next slide. So this is kind of give you that edge that, hey, it's a simple code, able to navigate, identify where is the problem in the code or where exactly it fails. So it becomes very easy, not even for a test, but for a developer, for anybody to have a conversation started when there is a failure, right? So one of the main challenges with any framework, any test that out there is that to tell what exactly failed. So, so this kind of give that edge for the person who is running it and looking at the log, doesn't need any pre-skills to understand it. Just they can use their understanding of and just say, hey, this is what fails, right? Now, by default, OpenBMC tests give this FFDC capability feature. You can see from the previous slide, at the end, there's called FFDC on test case fail. So this can be either by default it is enabled, meaning when you run the test, it will collect this log. You can still bypass that checking. You know that it's going to fail and you don't want to collect the data log. You can just disable it. So those are documented in the README and others in the OpenBMC test. You can look up. So now in this FFDC, you can see this is just a BMC FFDC data that we are collecting when your test case fail, right? You can have a bunch of the error general information that you have. Then you have a journal, memory info, what is the state of the BMC in the host. You can see the OCC state, and even the new one, the PAL. And we also give a snapshot of what was the state of all the redfish URL and its property at what state at that point of time when it fails. So when you look at the last file, for example, it will give you all the URL and its property inside and this data inside. So this kind of give a developer or a test to tell, hey, if I was running a particular test, should my the object that is there should be enabled, disabled? Is it that my configuration correct? Is my state correct? And you can refer at that point of time. So this kind of give that help while debugging, and because debugging is always not real time because somebody needs to come and look at it at later point of time. So we want to ensure that the log collected when the test case fails. So it collects all this data that is here, displayed here. So now, do collect, if you have a host, if you have a partition up and running, could be any distro or partition that you're running there, do we collect it? So we do, yes. So OpenBMC test gives you the facility if your host is in the network. It could be in private, but if it is accessible from a system from which your test is running. So just by giving some few parameters, it can just collect the host. But by default, we don't collect it. But if the user give that option, so it will collect similar kind of data from the host also. So that kind of tells, okay, what was the state of the host at the time your partition is running up or running at that time. So give that kind of hint.
A quick question, George.
Yes.
So this FFDC, is it configurable per test case or it's a common global configuration?
It's a global configuration, and so it will run flat out because right now we have not done it. So there's a future work which we want to do, which I'll talk at end. So to kind of make it more standalone so that we don't necessarily need to plug in with the test itself.
Awesome.
Okay. Now, in the beginning we said, this is one of the philosophy, because since we are working in a community, what I write, you may not like it. What you write, I may not want you to run it, right? So we want this capability for everyone to create their own bucket. I will choose out of the 1,200 test cases that is there, I will choose what I want to run, right? So on the left-hand side, you can see that this is one of the hardware CI Jenkins test that is running. So it just picks what it wants. I will test some IPMI SSH connection, power on, power off, check for application failure, do some checking the DOMs. I'll do some redfish login, and then I'll do some IPMI user check, then I will just verify if the Redfish account is working. So I will choose whatever I want and I will run it. So can you customize yourself? Yes, you can have your own customized file like this, and you can just point it to that file. Like I'll just show you in the beginning. Here, you can see that minus argument file. You can just point it to whatever file. It doesn't need to be in the test list. Anywhere in your sandbox where your test is running. So you can just point to your own file and it will run it from there. So this kind of gives you that edge to create your own set of tests according to the system you have, according to the support you have, according to the release that you have, right? So this gives you the edge to do the pick and choose. And there are instances where you know that out of like 50 tests that you want to run in the bucket, and some of them are not working because either there's a bug, either there is some problem in the firmware code or in the test code, and you don't want to run that because you know for sure that it's going to fail. You can always do skip it. You have a skipping option. You can skip those tests out of it. So in that way, you can cleanly run. And when you know that the firmware is fixed, that part of the test or the automation is fixed, you can just enable it back, just remove from your skip list. So this kind of give another edge is that you don't need to keep changing your own test code or directly, right? So you can have your own file and you can manage it, monitor it, and modify it according to your need. Then the another case is that, so you run a, so let's say in your continuous test environment, you're running it and you know that after running 1,000 test cases, you know that 40 are failed or 60 are failed. And you don't want to go through all of them, but you want to ensure that you want to rerun it. Only those 40 out of this 500 test cases that you just ran yesterday or just some time ago, it gives you this command line option to say, hey, the robot CLI gives you this option to just point it to the last run log, and it will know what to run, only the failed one, and it will ignore which is already been passed. It will only run the failed one. So you can choose to run only the test that is there, or you can choose to run the test suites. Test suite is nothing but a bunch of files that is there, which contains sets of tests. So it gives you that capacity. So now we have, with this, now we have the code are easy to understand, documented, easy to debug. You can pick and choose what you want to run, and you can configure how to run it, right? Okay, moving on. So we're going to talk about the test capability. So we have talked about like how to get started, what it can do. So we'll talk more brief upon what are the tests it can do. So the OpenBMC tests support at the backend to do the rest. The current still is going to be get the legacy one, the OpenPower XYZ one, plus the DMTF redfish/v1. And it supports out-of-band doing IPMI, doing the in-band, and we have code to do to kind of securely connect SSH to the BMC and the host. And there are other tools like the XCAT, DMTF redfish tool, those scripts, and OpenBMC tools that can be run. So these are the kind of supported interface, and even the BMC web GUI. And now, if you see in this picture, is this diagram that we have is the test BMC. If you look at from a very high level point of view, you'll see a 3 distinct function that you can test. So one is a boot test, meaning I don't care, I don't want to run anything else. I just want to boot the system, power on the system, power off the system, reset the system, do all sorts of those boot kind of testing. May it be from using the Redfish, may it be from IPMI, may it be from any tool. So it gives you the capability to run a continuous boot test over your system. So this is one of the one features that you can use it to do it. So another one is more of a functional test. So first one, you can say that, hey, this is to ensure that our systems are at least booting good and we don't see unexpected errors, right? It gives you that to sanitize your systems for a new build that you got up there. And the second one is more catered to the functional testing, meaning you will do all those API kind of testing, interfaces, functions, and you want to check, it will have all those combinations to check whether, for example, your LDAP, certificate, BMC, your user account, whichever is supported in OpenBMC, to hit those modules, those components, and see whether they're working or not. So the test cases are there. And the last one is the host test, meaning we want to run some kind of stress test, IO test that you want to run. So right now we are supporting something called the HTX. This is an exerciser tool, which is also an open source tool. You can use it and you can run to stress those IOs and test and to do the system RAS, whatever is needed. But it's very limited, but you can look up and see how you can use it if it is needed for your environment. So these are kind of three kind of areas that if you look at a bigger picture that OpenBMC test is supporting, and will continue to do it and will expand over a period of time. But tests will fall in any of one of this category when you want to do. So because we want to give that, like I said, to choose and pick, right? So it could be a build team, it could be a CI team, it could be a functional team, it could be people who are doing a system test, it could be people who do an integration test, right? So we want to give that flexibility for anybody, any role they're playing, to be able to choose, modify, select, and run according to their need. Okay, moving on. Let's know a little bit more about what we just talked about, okay? So this list it's not been updated, but there are a few more already. So like I said, we have a bunch of testing that can be done. So for one of them, the major one, which is like, for example, the code update, you can do for the BMC firmware and the host, the pnode that is available, you can do it. So we have the capability in OpenBMC test. Now, there are a bunch of code for power management, fan, controller. This is system could depend on the systems you have. Since, like I said in the beginning, we don't have access to all the system to run. So we kind of run to whatever system we have, which is out there. And that's the code is. So you can, if it is not working out for you, some of them, you can just skip them out and add your own stuff there, okay? Then we have the networking test, because one of the this is also one of the major features that to do all your configuration, the IPv4 configuration settings, right? So, and the MAC testing. So all of us are under this bucket. So I'll explain in a bit in next slides. Then we have some RAS capability that is there, but this is more catered to open power, like I said, because of the system. But you can always look it up and see how it is done there. And then we have a major chunk of web UI testing, right? So we have that currently the AngularJS is running. Now the new one direction is the Vue, which you are probably aware of it. So there's a lot of development activities going on there. And there are this SNM pays, you can do remote logging, LDAP, certificate, local user, date time, event logging. And even now we have added PLDM kind of tool testing. So this is more like very close to unit tests, but still the community says, hey, there are a lot of PLDM works that is going on. So at least we'll try to sanitize whatever we could. So there are some already test cases to via PLDM tool here. And another aspect of it is though no matter how much test code we write, if we don't have the data to debug or analyze it, it's not very useful. So we have this support of OpenBMC to collect the soul, mean the serial over LAN, meaning when you host root on your host console, it will collect this data. You can configure not to collect it, this one from the test. Then FFDC collection I just talked about, and error injection from host. For example, the open tools are there, the XCOMs are there, SCOM operation that you can do. This facility we provide in OpenBMC test. We have libraries to hook into the host and just run it, or from the BMC, the PDGB, you can run it. So we give these facilities there, but may need to tweak based on systems, but we have kept it as much generic as possible. Okay, so moving on. If you look at the OpenBMC test GitHub repo, you'll see some directories floating around there. So they are documented in the README, but just to give a highlight of here. So we have the Redfish directory. Under Redfish directory, all the system, BMC managers, account service, networking, code updates, all are also there for the Redfish. Okay, and there is a test folder. This is the one that we started back in 2016 to keep all our initial codes, and till now it is still there. So, and down the line, it may not be supported as well, but still we'll continue to keep it for various reasons, because we want it to be compatible and run an older system, an older release, or whichever the community wants to do it. Then we have the GUI one. This is going on, and we're going to support both of the Angular and the Vue. This is ongoing work. So, and we'll keep posted on this when it is released in the upstream. There's a repository for review, so you guys can go and check there. Then we have the IPMI, the networking, SNMP, like I talked about. Then we have something called extended to do the code update and all the other stuff. Then we have the PLDM, like I just mentioned earlier. And we have a few tools all written there. Like you can generate a test case documentation from the code. You can create a metrics data out of your executed. For example, you have a recently executed, let's say 1,000 test cases, and you want to create a report to say, hey, how many fail, how many it's not into a kind of CSV file, so which you can upload in your database, and you can have apply your filter and for your tracking and metrics purpose. And documentation, we always try to keep the documentation as simple as possible and more, so that people who comes, the folks who comes here to the OpenBMC community can see at one place and knows what needs to be done, right? So otherwise, if something are not clear, like as usual, you guys can drop to OpenBMC mailing list, and some of us will happily respond to your comments or queries there. Okay, so what are the current the test activities that is going on right now? So just to give a brief about it, since the community is doing a lot of work in around the Redfish. So you must have noticed that if you're doing some change in the BMC web, the code, we run a DMTF script, Redfish validator, using our OpenBMC test, which will tell that if your code has problems, right, it create new problems, so it will report it back. So this is also run as part of the Harvest CI test for the community. So this kind of work, we are doing it and we continue to expand it because we wanted to use a tool which is very standard and generic so that we don't have to write our own. So that is also one of the key factors because maintaining a repository is always not easy. Opinion could change. So we wanted to keep as simple as possible. And somebody wants to just write something, do it and be done with it, that kind of thing. Now, till now, the Redfish support is going in very full speed. So we have few changes that we needed to done as part of the OpenBMC test to support the old legacy, the REST ones that is still there, and the Redfish one. So we're trying to make sure that our community out there who's still using a fork out of it and doing downstream and doesn't want to yet move to Redfish, but still wants to run the latest code because it has more tests. We are trying to make sure that they are able to run it. So that is one. And we are, based on what other changes are coming in the community and people are talking about, we're watching. We're watching all the work groups that is going on, maybe from the PLDM, maybe from the GUI design, web UI design, maybe from the security work group, all of this stuff. So we're watching them and whatever we think that is needed to ensure that the OpenBMC test has the capability at any point of time, may not have all, but should be able to go probe test on your system and say, hey, whether the current latest and greatest OpenBMC build is at least functional or it is at least stable enough to continue and do more regression kind of testing that you want to do, or full continuous test in your environment. Like I said, the web UI is going. So these are the major activities that is going on. And we maintain a wiki there in OpenBMC test. We update it now and then to tell about when is a release happening and when are we branching out, and plus what are the code that is going on. Just a brief description about it. And these are the main things which is going on right now. So another thing, the near future one is that even though if we kind of write few or test many test code to do the API kind of testing to do it, but still it is very much possible, and it is that we miss the new function, new APIs that is out there to be tested, because some of the API that is available for some system may not be there in others. So we are looking for other tests as well, and tooling and framework around to do the API testing, like for example, the Postman. So we are considering all those to see that how can an OpenBMC as a test repository, not as a framework, but as a test repository, somebody can come and do all sorts of testing they wanted to do, right? Put their new idea, their new thoughts, the new tools there, or reference to a tool or documentation to do how it can be done. So we wanted OpenBMC test to be a test by itself, documentation by itself, have tools by itself, and uses whichever is open source and which is stable, right? So we are looking for it, and the suggestions are very much open, and feedbacks, you guys can reach out to us in the mailing list, or you can go to OpenBMC test GitHub and open an issue as a feature item. Some of our OpenBMC test community can come and look at it, even if any one of you can say, hey, I'll work on this, those kind of things we can be done. So we're open to suggestion and feedback there. So, and another one is, since most of our OpenBMC tests are running in an IPv4 kind of environment and testing and infrastructure. So we are looking and we're discussing about the aspect of what the IPv6 for the near future, so that if somebody use our OpenBMC test, they can run in your IPv4 environment, or you can run in your IPv6, and you can run in your DHCP environment, static or DHCP, whichever environment you want. So that we want to cover all those aspects of it. And lastly, so we wanted a data collection to be configurable. Right now it is plugged into the test, but we wanted something which a user say, hey, I want to just collect only few, and I don't want the remaining one, not collect the flat out. Or I want to just run separately, because sometimes it happen is a system in the field or a system in your lab could be in a fail state for whatever reason, and people want to collect the FFDC so that it can run as a standalone script. Could be a Python, could be anything. So we are looking for it. Right now, can you run to collect FFDC directly only? Yes. The robot the robot test gives you to only collect a FFDC and not run any tests. That can be also done. But still, we want to run something like standalone, like a package or a script, a kind of a Python script or anything. Just they run it, collect the data, whatever data they want to do. So these are the near term kind of work we are looking, and we are looking for the community support to come help us, either in the form of code, either in the form of feedback or suggestion. So all are welcome here. We, as a community, wanted to keep this code very simple. Let's keep it very agile, and so that we don't end up spending doing the maintenance work, but rather than enjoy the rich feature of the OpenBMC test to write code, run the code, and identify the bugs and release your systems. So that is our thing there going on for the OpenBMC. And I really appreciated those people who are from our OpenBMC partners that is signed up for it, and they have seen it, people coming, doing reviews, pushing the codes, and asking a bunch of questions in the mailing list. And we really appreciate your support, and we hope that you'll continue to do so. And because we wanted this OpenBMC test to be running to ensure that the OpenBMC, the stack that is running out there, can be used for anybody. And so that's it from my end. And thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, George. Any questions from anybody? Okay. So please reach out to George if you have any questions offline. Thanks a lot once more, George.